Welcome to the Cash Car Convert Podcast, Episode 11.
You're listening to the Cash Car Convert Podcast with James Kinson.
Welcome to the Cash Car Convert Podcast. My name is James Kinson, and I am the Cash Car Convert. This is the podcast where cash cars are cool and auto debt is dangerous to your financial future. I'm excited to have with us today a person who's been involved in mobile since 2005. He's created mobile content for major brands and small startups alike. He's a mobile marketing consultant, blogger, podcaster, speaker, coach, and advisor. Since September of 2013, he's gotten engaged, sold his house, and quit his job. He's also the host of Mobile Mixed, a web show that features free interviews with successful mobile marketers and some of the world's top experts sharing their insights and advice to help retailers and marketers dominate the mobile space. He also has a website, greghickman.me, and I love the tagline for the website. The tagline is, "Hi, I'm Greg. I'm just like you. I'm building the business and lifestyle of my dreams. If you're ready to build yours, join me." So with that, please welcome the man responsible for the Mobile Mixed web show and soon the author of the SMS Marketing Handbook, Greg Hickman. Greg, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Great. Glad to have you on. Hey, Greg, one thing, this podcast is dedicated to cash cars, and I'm trying to get people to live that kind of a lifestyle. So I always like to start off my interviews by asking the interviewee, what was their first car, how did they acquire it, and how did it work out for them?
My first car was a Jeep Wrangler, and it was leased, and my parents helped me with that. So yeah, I was fortunate enough to have them fund that first vehicle, but
Nice.
it was a lease. It was a white Wrangler, tan top, was the Sahara edition, and it was like still to this day probably my favorite car that I've had.
Wow. Nice. Okay, Greg. My audience is full of people who are in debt. They're open to making a change in their lives and, kicking auto debt to the curb, but they're trying to, figure out how they can make some kind of a transition. So they're not your traditional podcast listener. So with that as the backdrop, can you tell them a little bit about yourself, about, Mobile Mixed, the podcast and what you do with that business?
Yeah. So, Greg Hickman, and I've been a marketer since I got out of college and have worked for agencies and brands and all that stuff, and started a blog and a podcast training small business owners on how to use mobile marketing to generate leads and sales, and a weekly podcast and video show Tuesdays and Thursdays, and working on an ebook right now with some training courses and stuff like that, essentially helping small businesses connect with their customers using mobile. And, I completely know where your audience is coming from because I was there. And I guess in some ways, sometimes still a little bit am still there. But, I was an idiot with cars. I got cars that I probably shouldn't have had. Payments that I probably shouldn't have had, and transferred that multiple times, which put me kind of upside down on cars. And actually to this point, I'm still I'd done it so many times that I realized I was like, okay, I'm really upside down. I needed to figure out a way just to like see the light at the end of the tunnel. Yep. And I actually met with a handful of accountants and talked to some dealerships and stuff like that. And the best scenario for me at the time was to transfer out of the car that I was financing into a lease that I do have a high lease payment still, but at the end of the lease, I'm like completely I'm out in the clear.
Okay.
So I'm actually still dealing with that part. But in regards to the other debt, I built up credit card debt along the way as I was like building my business on the side, and I thankfully had a good job when I was working for corporate side, and have since been on my own working for myself, and not very long actually. I left my full-time job in December of last year, so December of 2013. And, in order to kind of get back on the right path, not only just to pursue my own business, but really to pay off a lot of the little debt that I had a little amount of debt in kind of comparison to what I know other people had, I guess.
Yep.
It still was a lot to me. And I sold my house with the plan to pay off all my debt and, use the profits after that as a kind of a safety net for taking my business full time.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, and I know exactly where you're coming from. I've been pretty crazy with cars myself. The upside for me is that I tended to buy used, so I didn't get as much of a depreciation hit as some people wind up taking. And with regards to you being upside down, so many people are dealing with that these days. And in fact, my last episode was in fact on how to deal with upside down cars, because it's about the number one search criteria that brings people to my website. And prior to doing that podcast episode, I'd only ever done one blog post about it, and yet that's what's driving people to my site. So I think there are a lot of people out there in that position, and I'm glad to hear that you're getting yourself in a position where you'll be able to get away from that.
Yeah.
With regards to you having sold your house, are you using that now sort of as an emergency fund to help you through, as you're building your business, or is your business up and running right now and doing great?
The business is up and running. It was up and running before I was generating revenue before I took the leap.
Yep.
I would say I'm not making as what I was making in my salary yet.
Right.
It's still kind of early to kind of say that, I took the leap in December. So, this is really like my first full month, like literally January 30th when we're recording. So, I'm generating money, probably not as much as I would have been making in my paycheck, but my February revenue, slotted revenue that I already know I'm making is well more than I made in my salary. So February is looking good. So I haven't, outside of paying off the debt, I really haven't kind of dipped into that fund yet.
That's fantastic. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's a really good point that you made, that you were already working a business before you left your job, right? So, Dave Ramsey talks about, the boat being close enough that you can step off the dock onto it and you don't have to leap, right? So,
yeah, that's a great analogy. And yeah.
So, what kind of revenue were you generating relative to your income before you made that leap? Was it, 50%?
Like at my full-time job?
Yeah, exactly. Right. So what was your part-time job generating percentage-wise of your full-time revenue when you decided to make that leap?
Let's see. On a monthly basis, maybe like 35-40% of it.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, probably closer to the 35, I would say.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
That was recurring. A couple of months I would do a project here and there that, would put it over 50, but from a recurring revenue standpoint, I'd say it's probably like in the 30 range.
Okay. All right. That's good to know. Yeah. Cause I, some people get the sense that they want to do the burn the ships thing and just, run to the new thing. And that feels good, but that can be a really scary place to be. And so it's really important. And one of the things I kind of stress to my listeners is, if you can get yourself out of debt and in your case, you sold your house as a way of kind of closing the gap there and helping you, and you had enough equity built up in that house that it also gave you an emergency fund. I know, when I talked to John Lee Dumas, he did the same thing. He could live like a year or two, on his savings, which allowed him to launch. So, you already had some recurring revenue. He didn't. So you didn't need to have quite as much margin, I guess.
Right.
But selling your house there gave you some great margin. When I think about the mindset of somebody who's entrepreneurial,
mm-hmm.
and I know that you worked several jobs along the way to get to your entrepreneurial path, where did you get that sense of wanting to be an entrepreneur? Were your parents entrepreneurs? Where did that come from?
Yeah, they were not. So I it's funny. I actually kind of just resurrected this memory not too long ago, but ever since I'm a huge cyclist.
Okay.
I like mountain biking and road biking. I got started mountain biking in like 5th or 6th grade, and really fell in love with it. And my point is that at early age, I always kind of saw myself as owning my own bike shop at one point.
Yep.
So I think from pretty much around 5th or 6th grade, I've always saw myself owning a business. At that time, it was owning a bike shop. As I got older and I've learned more and know people that own bike shops. I have zero interest in ever owning a bike shop.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I guess that the thought was there, whether I knew it or not, probably about that early. Then a company that I was working with, it was a small startup that a friend of a friend had started, and the three of us were in Connecticut at the time, and that company is what brought me to Denver, and I moved out to Denver in August of 2008. And at that point, I actually left that company and started my own mobile marketing consulting company.
Okay.
So that was like my first stab at actually trying to build my own business. It was more of like I wanted to leave, but I was also I was let go, but kind of on good terms.
Okay.
And at that point is when I decided to like start something.
Right.
So that was, early 2009 when that actually happened. So that was the first attempt at building a business. And kind of when I started that, I fell in love with this just the idea of owning my own business. And I didn't think that what I was doing at that time was going to be what I'd be doing forever, but
right.
I knew that I wanted to work for myself.
So you said you had a couple of partners in that endeavor, and I know you're doing your own thing now.
Yeah.
Were there any lessons learned in that endeavor, and how did that reshape the what you're doing now?
Yeah, a lot of lessons. So we all, well, except me, since I was, I guess, technically unemployed, I was kind of driving the launch and development of the company, and the two partners, it was sort of like a side thing. And I always obviously gave way much more of my time to the business than they were capable of. And for me, that was cool at first, but as it kind of got further along, I don't know. I guess I didn't really like that like I was sort of the only one that was all in.
Yeah.
And it was this. I mean, it was the smart thing to do at that point, but I don't know. Like it was. I guess I always told myself like, well, I bet I'd be more successful if I was on my own, because I wouldn't have to like wait for these guys to make a decision. We wouldn't have to come to like a group consensus. And so I just felt like that slowed us down a lot. And so I guess one is make sure that there's like a clear plan on the level of involvement from all the partners, how that equity is split, things like that would be kind of the main lessons I learned.
Okay.
And then also like to determine if you're the type of person that is fit for starting a company with other people. And I guess there's really not many ways to find that out. But like now I know like I obviously started my own company. I can bring people on, but now it's like I'm hiring people. Like right. I'm not jumping out of the gates with two other partners where like we're all trying to shape the vision. Like I have the vision now, and it's like I'll bring people on that will now believe in that vision versus trying to create the vision.
Right.
Which I think was something that we struggled with.
Yeah, that's got to make you a lot more nimble, right? I mean, there's no committee. You can make the decision and then just go with it, right? And like I said, you can bring on the resources or the people you need, full-time, part-time, whatever's necessary. So, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
A couple of things. One is, I have this sense that people who are entrepreneurs and people who do things on the side, right? So you're working your full-time job and then you're doing something on the side. They've got this really great work ethic. So where did you get your work ethic? And you talked about mountain biking. I know that's a sport that requires a lot of endurance and hard work. So I don't know, maybe it came from that, but just wondering kind of where your work ethic came from.
It's a great question. I don't really know, and I don't necessarily know that I had the greatest work ethic.
Okay.
I'm definitely getting better at that now. I think what helped me while it was on the side was that I knew that I only had limited time to work on it.
Right.
It's like I had a full-time job from 9 to 5. So like I guess I chose what I worked on a little bit more wisely because I only had a certain amount of time to work on it. Whereas now I'm like, I have more time to accept other opportunities and entertain other conversations, and all of which I probably don't need to be entertaining. So it's a matter of like understanding how much time you have to allot to it, and kind of the Parkinson's law,
Right.
whatever task you were trying to do, it'll fill the time that you allot to it.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, I didn't have a lot of time. So I got the tasks done that I needed to get done. And, till this day, when I talk to my friends and my people that I mastermind with, like they were impressed. And to this day, I'm impressed at how fast I grew mobile mixed.
Yep.
All while it being on the side.
Okay. Right. And you're saying that was, in some ways, you're saying that was sort of easy because you knew you only had a defined set amount of time to work on it. So it was very easy to focus on the tasks that needed the most important tasks, I guess I should say, to get you moving to the next level, right?
Yeah.
Whereas now you sort of have all of your time dedicated to this, but at the same time, you're trying to focus on this business, but it sounded like other people are coming to you with other opportunities and therefore there's more distractions. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
Okay.
Definitely.
Yeah. It's kind of funny you say that because even though, I'm doing this, on the side after hours and that sort of thing, and I'm, just kicked this thing off and I've already had people approach me about doing things and it's, and I'm kind of like, no, this is what I'm supposed to be doing right now. I'm heads down on this. But so I completely get that even though I'm just starting, that people see opportunity and they want to bring you into it, which is great. But, you got to know what your primary focus is and what
you got to know when to say no.
Exactly. Which can be tough sometimes. So are you better about saying no now?
Getting better. Yes.
Okay.
Am I where I want to be? No.
No. Okay.
But I'm getting a lot better.
That's great. Okay. Well, I heard you mention that you've got a new book out, and I mentioned that in the intro, the SMS Marketing Handbook.
Yep.
You want to tell us a little bit about that? I believe it's launching in February. I think it's the 18th, if I'm right.
Yeah, perfect. Spot on. Okay. So the SMS Marketing Handbook is basically a step-by-step guide on getting started with text message marketing, which is what SMS is, for small businesses. So why they should be using it, how to select a vendor, how to create a strategy that leverages it, how to create your kind of contact strategy and how do you measure it and all that stuff, and then some case studies. And depending on which package you buy, you can get just the book, or there's training videos and resources that come along with it, depending on which package you buy. So it's really all about helping people find a new and engaging way to connect with their customers that is proven to work.
Okay. And I'm going to have the early sign up link in the show notes. So we'll link everybody up to
Perfect.
that. So when this comes out, you said there's a couple of ways a couple of packages. Is this going to be available on your site? Is it going to be on Amazon or multiple places?
It's going to be on my site. Yeah,
okay.
It'll be on my site.
Okay, perfect. All right. So we'll have that linked up as well. So we'll
awesome.
get to go there.
Yeah, you can actually pre-order it right now. So you can use that link.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, that's the early sign up link, right? So
it's actually not. Early sign up is a different link.
Okay.
But I can give you the pre-order.
Yeah. Okay, do that, and I'll link that up in the show notes. That'll be perfect. When you got the idea to start with mobile mixed, what were some things that maybe held you back there? Did you have sort of the doubts, the imposter syndrome, all those things that we hear about from a lot of folks? What was in there in your head?
Everything. Scared. I guess I was less scared to start mobile mixed because I knew I had the safety of my full-time job. A lot of the fears and stuff came about when I started asking myself when I would be ready to take it full time and leave my full-time job. But just getting started, I had all those. The biggest thing was like wanting it to be perfect right away.
Right.
And there's no way that that's going to happen. It's never going to be exactly what you envision it to be right when you start. And there's been iterations of huge improvements. My show started out as a video-based interview show. The first, I'd say 30, almost 40 episodes were side by side, video, talking heads.
Yep.
And now the show's all audio, and I mix in interviews. It's not even all interviews anymore. So it's just been an interesting journey. But I would say I was definitely concerned with it being perfect, and I probably could have started months and months earlier if I hadn't worried about that.
Yeah, I can certainly relate to that. I think I did my first episode 4 or 5 times before I finally released it, and that was over several months. So yeah, I completely get that side of it.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you're doing twice a week podcasts now. Have you always done it twice a week, even when you were doing the videos?
So it's not a podcast twice a week, although it will sort of be in a second, or soon, not a second, but soon. So it started off as every Wednesday was the show.
Yep.
And as of, I guess, maybe end of December. It's probably middle, end of December. I started a weekly video show,
okay.
Shorter video. It's called Takedown Tuesdays. It's like a case study of a brand doing something in mobile. It's like 4 to 10 minute long video. So that's Tuesdays, and I moved the podcast to Thursdays. So now there's the video Tuesdays and the podcast Thursdays. I'm going to be releasing the audio component of the videos into a podcast.
Okay.
So that'll be an addition. But yeah.
Okay, great. All right. What is the thing that you want people to know about mobile that they don't know today?
That they don't know?
Yeah.
Well, I just think the important thing is that, you know, whoever your audience or your customer is in today's connected world, they choose when, where, how, and on what device they use to connect with you and engage with you. And, you know, it's no longer in our court to make that determination. And, you know, but it is up to us now to make sure that whatever device they choose, that we give them a really good experience, or else they're going to leave. And statistically, it's shown that, you know, if you don't have a mobile website, you know, the odds are that like 74% of consumers will leave, and 46% of that will then never come back again. So I just challenge people to start thinking about how they might be, or how their customer might be connecting with them and their business from their phone, and how they can help their customer, you know, complete the actions or the tasks that they normally would try to complete maybe from their desktop site, because all of that stuff now is happening from a phone. And, you know, if you don't try to cater to that part of your customer's lifestyle, then they're just going to find somewhere else and someone else that will do it. So I think kind of where business is going is that we have to be able to, you know, kind of please our customers and our audience on a mobile device.
Yeah. You know, there was a great quote Scott Stratton made at NMX saying, as a content creator, it's none of your business where your people consume your content, right? That's their choice. And so we have to be ready to provide that content wherever people want it. So
yeah, you know, thank you. Because been trying to remember what that quote was, and I knew it was something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was definitely along those lines. Like, yeah, it's none of your business how they choose to connect with you and when. Like, they could be doing it when they're about to go to bed. They could be doing it when they're on the toilet. They could be doing it from their desktop. They could be doing it in the car. And quite frankly, like, as the business owner, you shouldn't care.
Right.
And you won't care when you know that no matter where they do it, they're going to get a good experience. And that's when you're, you know, doing something mobile friendly.
Right. Absolutely. You know, I was listening to you speak, and I heard you mention that you have a friend that's in the salon business, and
Yes.
you had helped them make some changes, and they had increased the number of calls that they were getting. Can you tell that story a little bit?
Yeah. So my friend owns an airbrush tanning salon in Denver, and you know, she has one or two part-time employees, and, you know, she's not in a part of town that would get a lot of like walking traffic. So we created a mobile optimized site that was aimed at getting people to call and make appointments. And that site now generates, you know, anywhere from like, you know, 5 to 25 calls a week. You know, people looking for tanning, and they find her site and they can easily call and make an appointment. And her calendar is definitely more full than it ever has been since she's done that. And she's also started collecting mobile numbers from their customers using text message marketing. And she sends out text messages to her list, you know, on kind of promoting people to come on her slower days of the week. And, you know, her slow day of the week is now not her slow day of the week. You know, it's just like any other day. Yeah. And, you know, at that point you have like the marginal, you know, if say Tuesday was her slow day, and, she obviously not going to just close the store on Tuesdays because it's her slow day. She still pays rent. She still has to pay, all the utilities, all that stuff. So she has costs. So she focused on getting people there on slow days, and also filling opening slots that she had in her schedule. And, she's been able to do that very successfully for very minimal investment. And, we were looking at the number of times that people wouldn't show up to appointments or stuff like that, or money that she would lose by having open slots in her schedule. I mean, it adds up to like over $20,000 a year. Wow. And, when you're a small business owner, I mean, that can make or break you. So, a lot of those calls are generated from the mobile site because people, 40% of all searches that have local intent are from a mobile device. So, people are looking for stuff in and around them, and they're statistically proven to take action. And that's calling the business, visiting the business, purchasing from the business. And, if you're a local business, mobile search is something that can really help people find you. And that's just people happen to be looking for tanning, from their phone. Maybe they went to one place and it was booked. They couldn't get in, so they quickly grab their phone and they look for another tanning salon, and they come across her, and it's a seamless process to make an appointment at her studio with from mobile. So she's definitely seen an uptick in business, and helping kind of drive foot traffic in there.
I certainly can relate to that as an end user. I know when I have my iPhone and I'm searching for a restaurant or whatever it may be, a store. I was looking for a store the other day, in fact, and if I couldn't contact them and find them, then I would have just moved on to something else. And so, some other restaurant or some other store would have gotten my business. So that's a really great point. So if you're not mobile ready, if you can't be found or located or contacted via that resource, then you're
right.
Probably giving up some business. So
totally.
So we're pretty much at the end of our time here. So I want to just ask you, what advice would you give someone out there who's not living their dream, somebody who's in debt and they're probably at the point where they can't even see light at the end of the tunnel? Is there something that you would recommend that they start doing today to start digging themselves out of that and get them on at least the journey to where they want to be? Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, you need to identify what's holding you. Well, first identify what you want. Like, what do you want your life to be like? What does your perfect day look like? And, literally write that out. And, a lot of those things that you probably write down have nothing to do with the job that you're in, first of all.
Right.
So understanding what it is you want and what sort of business you'd want to create, and then put a plan together. And, you have to take action, and you need to find time to take the action and make time to take the action. And, I started building my business in 2012, and I only left, I left in December 2013. So, I was building the foundation so that I was able to leave, but I knew what I was trying to create. And I knew what sort of life I wanted to live, like how I wanted to structure my day. And I think most people don't know what their vision is yet. So, determine what your vision is, and then identify everything that's keeping you from getting there. Is it time? Is it money? Is it resources? Like, what do you think is slowing you down? And figure out ways to eliminate those. Because, like, for me, one of my fears to go full time was I wasn't going to be able to pay my mortgage.
Right.
So I sold my house. Now I don't have a mortgage. So probably 3 months before I sold the house, if someone had said like, "Hey, why don't you sell your house?" I would have been like, "That's crazy. Why would I ever do that? That's like a dumb idea." But then I realized that my vision had less to do with my house, and it had more to do with the way I live my life, and the life that I want to create for myself. And once I realized that the house was actually just a thing. It wasn't I could sell it and make the investment in myself and in my vision. And once I kind of came to that point, I kind of lost that fear. And it took me a while to get to that point. I could have obviously sold my house a lot earlier, but looking at it from a different perspective really helped. I originally said, "Oh, I'm going to have this property. It's an investment," but it was also preventing me from taking the leap because my mortgage was a certain price.
Right.
And I was able to simplify my life and lower my bills by getting rid of that house. And now I have the opportunity to really create the life that I want to create. And if I chose to never look at it that way, then I'd probably still be there.
It's so funny because one of my taglines for my show is invest in yourself, not things. And so many of the people I've spoken to, whether they're entrepreneurial or whatever their backgrounds are, so many of them I found is they sacrifice something. Sometimes it's cars, sometimes it's other things, sometimes it's both cars and homes to live that more simplistic life that then gives them the opportunity to go after their dream.
And so what's interesting about the way you just said that is that if you choose to view it a certain way, it's not a sacrifice.
Right.
So the problem is a lot of people view it as a sacrifice, and then it's like, oh, well, I have to sacrifice this to get that. No, you don't have to sacrifice anything. You can realign what you're trying to do so that it makes sense for you. Like, I originally looked at selling my house as a sacrifice. Like, oh, I'm giving up this amazing investment opportunity. Or I could say, you know what? The money that I make from this house, which was an amazing investment opportunity, is now can be flipped to be the way that I can invest in myself. And I didn't look at it. Once I stopped looking at it as a sacrifice, I was actually able to move forward with it. So I think making sure that you're not like playing the victim, like, oh, I can't do this because of this. Well, You actually can. You're just choosing not to because you're choosing to view this in a certain way that makes you feel like you have to sacrifice or be a victim.
Right. That's perfect. I love that. And it reminds me of a conversation I had with Pat Flynn, and he drives a 2003 Honda CR-V, right? And somebody asked him, why do you drive that vehicle? And he said, I have other plans for my money. I have other priorities. That's what it was. I have other priorities for my money. Yeah. And that's it. It's what do you prioritize, right? Is it things? Is it yourself? Is it your dream? Family? You get to choose what that is, but like you said, then don't cry about it, right? Your choices are your choices. Right?
Exactly.
So
yeah.
I love that. That's great. That's perfect. Well, Greg, I've really enjoyed this interview.
Likewise. Thank you.
Where can people best reach you if they want to, thank you for being on or find out more about Mobile Mixed?
Yeah. So mobilemixed.com. It's mobile and then MIXED. Or on Twitter at GJ Hickman, HICKMAN.
Perfect. Okay, I'll have both those linked up in the show notes, as well as access to your book as well, SMS Marketing Handbook.
Yeah, if you want that, it's mobilemixed.com/preorder.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I'll get that in there. All right. Well, Greg, I really appreciate you being on.
Thank you.
To find the show notes for this episode, please go to cashcarconvert.com/011. Again, that's cashcarconvert.com/011. If you want to contact me directly, please reach out to me on Twitter at cashcarconvert. Again, that's at cashcarconvert. If you find this podcast helpful and you want to make others aware of it, the best way to do that is to get it noticed in iTunes. And to do that, a subscription followed by a rating and review, those are really the best things you can do to help this podcast get recognized. Now, I would love to get a 5-star review, but the fact is I want to make this the best podcast I can, so I'd love some good, honest feedback. So please feel free to leave me that when you leave a rating and review. Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate every one of you. Have a great day. Hey everyone, I hope you enjoyed that interview with Greg Hickman. I met Greg briefly at NMX, and he was just a genuine gentleman and an absolutely nice guy, and it was a pleasure for me to meet him there. It was a pleasure for me to have him on the show today as well. I hope you got some good takeaways from the interview. I know for me, there was one major takeaway, but I know everybody listens sort of from where they are, right? So you have to kind of listen with an ear for where you are in your stage of life and in your journey. But for me, in this episode, the thing that really jumped out at me was the fact that Greg didn't feel that selling his house to invest in himself and his business was a sacrifice. And I found that fascinating when he said it. And, when I thought about it, that really aligns pretty well with what we heard from Dan and Vanessa Hayes in episode 8 of the Cash Car Convert podcast. And they referenced it in terms of their life plan, right? And having that desired end state. So when I heard Greg say that, it brought me back to that moment. And it made me realize that, again, the journey is different for each one of us. And we each need to make the choices that are going to take us to our own desired end state. And I think that you do that by investing in yourself and not things. And I think if you've listened to the entrepreneurs who've come on this show, they've all said the same thing in different ways, and their journeys have all been different. Pat Flynn was laid off, so he was kind of pushed out of the nest. John Lee Dumas, he kind of jumped on his own, right? He had a vision and went with it. Dan and Vanessa Hayes, Dan was getting ready to retire from the military and wanted to know what the rest of his life was going to look like. And he decided he had a vision for that, and it didn't include spending a lot of money on land and houses and all those kinds of things that maybe some of us envision in our retirement. And then Greg, in today's interview, he had a vision that included him starting a business and being an entrepreneur. And to fulfill that dream and to give him the cushion he needed to pay off the debt that he had, to give him a nest egg, he did what he needed to do to make all that happen. And now he's living his entrepreneurial journey. He did start his business on the side. He had about 30 to 35% of his income from his regular daytime job coming in through his side business before he ever made the leap. So he had the additional income coming in, and he had sold his house to give himself some cushion. So that was his vision, and that's how he decided to pursue his journey. So those of you out there listening, how are you going to pursue your journey? What things are you going to do that the others around you, others outside your immediate family are going to look at and say, you're making a sacrifice, and you're going to say, no, I made this choice because this is the way I want to live my life. This is my vision for my life. This is where I want my life to go. Maybe it's getting started by getting out of debt. Maybe it's auto debt, as I would encourage you to do, and getting started with that cash car so you can start investing in yourself and not in things. So I think I've given you enough to ponder here. Again, I would encourage you to go out to michaelhyatt.com and get that life plan, and that'll be in the show notes as well. Thank you again for listening, and I hope you have a really great day.